When Emily married Robert, she knew love would ask her to be patient in ways she had never imagined. Robert was kind, dependable, and gentle with her. But his teenage son, Ethan, looked at her as if she had stolen something that once belonged to him. Their first months as a family were filled with polite words that never felt real. Ethan was 17, quiet, guarded, always wearing headphones, disappearing into his room after school. Emily tried to talk to him, offering breakfast or help with homework, but his answers were short. Sometimes just a nod. Robert, a construction manager who worked long hours, believed time would fix everything. "Give him space," he said. "He'll come around." But space was all they seemed to have too much of it. The house itself felt divided. On one side, laughter between Emily and Robert during dinner. On the other, Ethan's silent footsteps upstairs. Emily could sense that the boy missed his late mother deeply. There were framed photos in his room. Emily had noticed them once while leaving fresh towels by the door. The woman in those photos smiled like sunlight, holding Ethan when he was little. Emily never tried to replace her, but she often wondered if Ethan thought she was trying to. One autumn evening, rain tapping against the windows, Emily was alone in the kitchen preparing tea. Ethan walked in, searching for something in the cupboard. It startled her. He rarely came downstairs except to grab snacks. She smiled softly. "Long day?" she asked. He hesitated, then shrugged. "Yeah, school tea," she offered. He nodded after a pause, maybe surprised she even asked. They sat quietly across the counter, steam rising between them. It wasn't much, but it was the first time he didn't rush away. That night, Emily told Robert what happened. He smiled, hopeful. "That's good," he said. "He just needs to know you're not going anywhere." The next few days were better. Ethan started greeting her when he came home. Sometimes he'd even ask about dinner. For the first time, Emily felt maybe the walls between them were cracking, but peace didn't last on one weekend. Robert had to travel out of town for a work conference. He kissed Emily goodbye early Friday morning, promising to be back Sunday night. The house grew quiet again. That evening, Ethan came home looking frustrated. "Rough day?" she asked carefully. He dropped his bag and sighed. "Coach said I'm off the team next week if I don't bring my grades up." Emily nodded. "Do you want me to help you study? I used to teach English before I met your dad." He looked unsure. "I guess, yeah, maybe." They spent that evening at the dining table, books and notes scattered. She helped him write an essay about second chances, a topic he chose. His handwriting was messy, but his thoughts were strong, emotional. He wrote about loss, about not trusting people, about walls built too high to climb. When he finished reading aloud, Emily said softly, "That's a beautiful piece." "Ethan," he looked up, a little embarrassed but proud. "You really think so? Do you? You have a lot to say." That was the first time he smiled at her, just a small, fleeting one, but it changed everything. Saturday morning, she made pancakes. Ethan joined her at the table without being asked. They talked about simple things, his friends, the music he liked, how he missed his mom's blueberry muffins. Emily listened without interrupting. When he mentioned his mom, she didn't flinch or change the subject. She just said she must have been amazing. He nodded quietly. She was. There was warmth in the air that morning, the kind that only honesty can bring. For the first time, the house didn't feel divided that afternoon. Emily found Ethan sitting on the porch, headphones around his neck. He was watching the rain again, the same way his father did when lost in thought. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. He shrugged, but didn't move away. They sat in silence until Ethan spoke. "I used to think you were just trying to take her place." Emily took a deep breath. "I know, and I wouldn't even try. You had a mother who loved you more than anything." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but you're different. Not bad, different, just different." It was the most open he'd ever been with her. She didn't know how to respond, so she just said, "Thank you." Then came a small sound, a laugh. "You're weird," he said, smiling. She laughed too. "I'll take that as a compliment." That night, Emily sat alone after he went upstairs. The rain had stopped, and she looked at the quiet house. It wasn't perfect yet, but something inside her told her they were finally becoming a family. However, the next morning brought something she didn't expect. Ethan's friend Lucas showed up early, knocking at the door. "Hey, Mrs. Carter," he said politely. "Ethan home?" "He's upstairs," Emily said. "Come in." She went back to folding laundry in the living room. A few minutes later, she overheard them talking upstairs, voices low, serious. Then Lucas's voice rose slightly. "You should just tell her, man. She's not like everyone else." Emily froze. "Tell her what?" Later that day, Ethan came downstairs, clearly nervous. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked. She nodded, heart suddenly uneasy. He sat at the edge of the couch, hands fidgeting. "There's something I want to say before Dad comes back." She waited. He took a breath. "I know I've been rude and I don't say it much, but I'm glad you married him. You make him happy. You make the house feel alive again." Her eyes softened. "Ethan, that means more to me than you know." He smiled shyly. "Lucas says I should be more open with people I care about. I'm still learning how." Emily placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're doing great. It's okay to take time." For a moment, they both sat quietly, the kind of quiet that feels peaceful, not heavy. But then, just as the warmth filled the room again, Ethan's phone buzzed. He read the message and his expression changed. "Dad's flight got delayed. He won't be home until tomorrow night." Emily nodded. "That's okay. We'll manage dinner together." He hesitated, glancing toward the kitchen. "Maybe we could make something special, like blueberry muffins, for Mom." Her heart caught in her throat. "I'd love that." And so they baked. They laughed when the batter spilled, and for the first time they worked like a real team. When the muffins came out of the oven, the smell filled the house, sweet, warm. Nostalgic as they sat on the counter eating one each. Emily noticed Ethan looking at her, thoughtful, almost emotional. "What?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "Just thanks for not giving up on me." Emily smiled gently. "You were always worth waiting for." The moment lingered quiet, meaningful. Outside, the evening deepened into night. The porch light flickered softly through the rain. Ethan looked away, his voice barely above a whisper. "You know, sometimes I just want to understand how you do it, how you stay calm even when things hurt." She thought for a long second. "Maybe because I learned that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just staying when you could have left." He nodded slowly, and then before she could say anything else, the power flickered off. Plunging the house into darkness, Ethan stood, startled. "I'll check the fuse box," he said. Emily called out. "Be careful, it's raining." But he was already halfway to the basement. That was when the thunder cracked, shaking the windows. Emily felt her heartbeat quicken, not from fear of the storm, but from the realization that the world she had carefully built with Robert and Ethan was changing in ways she didn't yet understand. In that brief darkness, surrounded by the smell of rain and blueberry muffins, Emily sensed that something was beginning, a new chapter, one that would test everything she thought she knew about love, patience, and family. And upstairs, the faint sound of Ethan's footsteps returning told her the storm had only just started. The storm outside grew worse through the night. Rain drummed against the roof like a restless heartbeat, and thunder rolled through the sky. When the lights went out again, Emily lit a few candles and placed them on the table. Their warm glow filled the kitchen, soft and golden against the dark windows. Ethan returned from the basement, shaking his head. "Fuse is fine. Probably the line's outside." "Guess we're stuck with candlelight," Emily said, smiling faintly. "Could be worse." He sat across from her, the glow flickering between them. "It's kind of nice," he said quietly. "Peaceful." For a few moments, they sat in silence, listening to the rain. It was the kind of silence that felt full, not empty. Emily watched the candlelight reflect in Ethan's eyes, and something in her heart softened further. This was no longer the guarded boy who barely spoke to her. He was growing up steady, thoughtful, and trying hard to rebuild the world around him. She thought of Robert, way in another city, probably calling the airline in frustration. He would have wanted to see this moment the connection finally forming. Between his wife and his son, Ethan looked at her and smiled. I think Dad's going to be really happy when he sees us like this. We're finally acting like a family. I think so too, she said softly. He's been waiting for this. Sudden gust of wind slammed the porch door open, making them both jump. Emily laughed nervously and went to close it. Guess the storm wants to join dinner, she said. Ethan helped her latch the door. And as they stood side by side, thunder boomed again. He glanced at her. You're not scared, are you? Of a storm? Not really, she said, though her voice trembled slightly. You kind of sound like you are. She smiled. Maybe a little. I've never liked loud thunder. Ethan picked up a flashlight and said, I'll stay here until it passes. You shouldn't be alone. She was touched by his concern. That's very kind of you. They moved back to the table. Emily poured them both some tea, now lukewarm but still comforting. She began, I think storms bring out truth in people. You can't pretend everything's fine when lightning is flashing outside. Ethan chuckled. So what truth are you thinking about? That I care about you more than I thought possible, she said, surprising herself with how easily the words came. He looked startled. You do? Of course. You're part of this home. Part of my heart, whether you like it or not. Ethan smiled shyly, looking down. I like it. I just didn't know if I deserved it. You do, she said firmly. You've been through a lot, Ethan. You're allowed to be guarded, but you're also allowed to be loved. He didn't answer right away, but his eyes said everything. The storm seemed quieter for a moment, as if even the sky had stopped to listen. After a while, they decided to move into the living room. The fireplace still worked, and Ethan helped her light it. The orange glow spread warmth through the space. Emily sat on the couch with a blanket, and Ethan joined on the other side. The fire popped softly, casting moving shadows on the walls. This is actually nice, he said, leaning back. I don't remember the last time I just sat like this. You mean without your phone or music? She teased. Yeah, he laughed. Exactly that. Emily leaned her head against the couch. You should do it more often. Silence can be good. He nodded slowly. You make silence feel okay? That line stayed with her gentle, honest, innocent. It wasn't something you expect from a teenager. But Ethan wasn't like most teens. There was an old soul in him, shaped by loss and quiet strength. Time passed softly. The fire dimmed a little, and the rain outside became a low murmur. Emily realized hours had gone by. You should sleep, she said gently. Your dad would want you rested. Ethan shook his head. I'm not tired. I'll sleep later. You sure? He nodded. Yeah, I kind of like talking to you. She smiled, touched by the simplicity of it. Then tell me something about you. Something I don't know, he thought for a second. I used to write letters to Mom after she passed. I'd leave them under her photo. Emily's heart ached softly. That's beautiful, Ethan, he shrugged. I stopped when Dad married you. I thought it'd be weird. Why? Because I didn't want to make you feel like I was stuck in the past. Her eyes softened. Ethan, you never need to hide love. Love doesn't make anyone uncomfortable. It's what keeps people alive. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. You really mean that? Every word. Something changed in that moment, something invisible but powerful. It wasn't about forgiveness or replacement anymore. It was about understanding. They were two people who had both lost something but somehow found each other in the middle of it. When the power finally came back, the sudden brightness made them blink. The modern world had returned the hum of the refrigerator, the steady ticking of the clock. But the silence between them was different now, peaceful instead of distant. Emily smiled faintly. Well, looks like the storm is over. Ethan stretched and yawned. Yeah, but it kind of helped, didn't it? It did, she said softly. Sometimes storms do that. He stood to head upstairs but turned at the bottom step. "Hey, Emily." "Yes. Thanks for letting me see who you really are." She blinked back tears. "Anytime, Ethan." He disappeared upstairs, and Emily sat there for a long time, staring at the fire as it dimmed. She felt lighter than she had in months. But peace never lasts long in real life. The next morning, Robert called from the airport. "Bad news," he said. "Flights are grounded again. Might be tomorrow before I get home." "That's fine," Emily said. "We're okay here." After breakfast, Ethan came downstairs with his backpack. "Going to meet Lucas at the library," he said. "We have a project." "Okay, be careful, the roads are wet." He nodded and left. Emily spent the day cleaning and catching up on emails. Around 4 in the afternoon, she heard the door open again. Ethan was back early, but he looked upset. "What happened?" she asked. He hesitated. "Lucas's mom said something. About you and Dad, about how fast you two got married. It bothered me." Emily sighed quietly. "People will always have opinions. What matters is what we know." "I know," he said. "But I hate when they talk like you don't belong with us." She smiled softly. "Thank you, but you don't have to protect me from gossip." "I want to," he said, almost fiercely. "You don't deserve that." Her heart ached with pride and tenderness. "You're growing into someone your mom would be proud of." He looked down, then nodded. "I hope so." That evening, Robert called again. Emily put him on speaker so Ethan could talk to. Robert sounded tired, but happy to hear both their voices. "Sounds like you two are doing great," he said. "That makes me so happy." Ethan grinned. "We're doing fine, Dad. I even made muffins." Robert laughed. "Muffins. My two favorite people in the kitchen. Now that's dangerous." After the call, the house fell quiet again. Emily sat near the window, watching the wet streetlights outside. Ethan came up behind her. "Do you ever get lonely?" he asked suddenly. She thought for a moment. "Sometimes. But it's not the kind of loneliness that hurts. It's just quiet." He nodded thoughtfully. "I get that. I used to feel that way all the time." She smiled softly. "Maybe we both just needed someone to sit in the quiet with us." Ethan didn't reply, but he stayed by the window beside her, both of them looking at the rain. It was a simple, human closeness, no words, no tension, just shared peace. Later. When he went to bed, Emily found the essay they'd worked on still lying on the table. She picked it up and read the last line again. "Sometimes the people we least expect are the ones who save us." Tears welled in her eyes. She folded the paper carefully and set it aside. The storm outside had passed, but she knew the real change had happened inside their hearts. And as she turned off the lights that night, Emily realized something quietly beautiful. She hadn't just married Robert. She had inherited a chance to love someone who needed it most. Upstairs. Ethan's door creaked slightly as he shifted in bed. The soft rhythm of a house that finally felt whole. But what Emily didn't know was that tomorrow would bring a letter from Ethan's late mother, discovered by accident, that would test everything they had just built. Sunday morning arrived clear and bright. The storm had passed, leaving the air fresh and cold. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as Emily poured herself coffee. The quietness of the house felt comforting. She thought about Robert's return that afternoon, imagining his smile when he saw how well things had gone between her and Ethan. Upstairs, she heard movement. Ethan's door creaked open, then his hurried footsteps down the hall. "Morning," he said, appearing in the doorway with messy hair and sleepy eyes. "Morning," she replied, smiling. "Hungry." "Starving," he said, grinning. She laughed and made toast while he set the table. The air between them was easy now, filled with a kind of peace that had taken months to build. For the first time, the house felt like a home where everyone belonged. After breakfast, Emily began tidying up while Ethan went to look for a notebook he had lost. He rummaged through a storage box near the attic stairs, a box that had once belonged to his mother. Emily heard him call softly, "Emily, can you come here for a second?" She walked over and saw him holding a small white envelope, the edges yellowed with age. Her heart skipped a beat. "It has my name on it," he said quietly. "In Mom's handwriting? Emily froze. The neat cursive letters read to Ethan for when you're ready. Ethan's voice trembled slightly. I never saw this before. She swallowed hard. Maybe your dad kept it safe and forgot to tell you. Or maybe she wanted you to find it yourself. He nodded slowly, staring at it. Should I read it? It's yours, Ethan. You'll know when you're ready. He looked down at the letter again, then tore the seal gently. The paper crackled as he unfolded it. Emily stood beside him, her hands clasped nervously. Ethan began to read softly, his voice trembling at first. My dear Ethan, if you're reading this, it means you've grown into a young man. I wish I could see the person you've become. I know you'll be kind, stubborn, and full of questions, just like your dad. And that's good. Don't ever stop asking why. His eyes glistened as he continued. There will come a day when someone new enters your life. Maybe someone your heart doesn't understand at first. You might feel like letting her in means letting me go. But please don't think that way. Love doesn't replace. It expands. Let her care for you. Let her teach you new ways to smile. Ethan stopped reading, his throat tight. Tears filled his eyes, but he blinked them back. Emily could barely breathe. The words felt like a hand reaching across time, healing something deep inside both of them. He took a deep breath and read the last lines aloud. Promise me you'll let love stay in your home, even when it feels strange or undeserved. You deserve to be loved every day, Ethan, by your father, by life, and by whoever stands beside you. Love always, Mom. Silence filled the attic. Dust floated in the sunlight, golden and soft. Ethan folded the letter carefully and held it against his chest. Emily's voice was gentle. She loved you so much, Ethan. You can feel it in every word. He nodded, his jaw tight. Yeah, I can. Then he looked up at her. She was talking about you, wasn't she? Emily blinked, taken aback. What do you mean? She said I'd meet someone who'd make me smile again. Someone I should let in. She hesitated, emotions swelling in her chest. Maybe she meant anyone who cared for you. Maybe she just wanted you to stay open to love. But Ethan shook his head slightly, eyes still red. No, she meant you. I can tell. Emily's heart broke and healed all at once. Tears spilled silently down her cheeks. Then I'll do my best to make her proud of both of us. He stepped forward and hugged her, something he'd never done before. It was firm, real, full of everything they hadn't said for months. Emily held him, her hand trembling against his shoulder. After a moment, he whispered, "Thank you for staying." She smiled through tears. I wasn't going anywhere. Downstairs, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway startled them both. Robert was home. They rushed down the stairs together. Robert walked in, suitcase in hand, smiling wide. Now this looks like a sight for sore eyes. Ethan grinned and hugged his dad tightly. Hey, Dad, you made it. Robert hugged him back, clearly surprised by his warmth. Then he turned to Emily, pulling her close. You two seem different. Ethan smiled at both of them. We found something in the attic. Robert frowned. What do you mean? Ethan handed him the letter. Robert unfolded it and began reading. His expression softened, then broke into tears. I thought I lost this years ago, he whispered. Emily placed a hand on his arm. She left it for him to find when he was ready. I think now was the right time. Robert nodded slowly. She always knew what we needed before we did. The three of them stood together, quiet and close. The letter still in Robert's hand. For the first time, there were no walls between them, just gratitude, love, and peace. Later that evening, the sun dipped behind the trees, painting the sky orange and gold. Robert grilled dinner in the backyard while Emily set the table. Ethan joined them, laughing, sharing stories. Teasing his dad about his cooking skills? It felt simple, warm and right. As the evening went on, Ethan looked across the yard, where the wind moved softly through the leaves. You know, he said quietly, I think she'd be happy right now. Robert nodded, eyes misty. Yeah, she would. Emily smiled at both of them. And I think she'd want us to keep building from here, not looking back too much, just forward. Ethan nodded, his face calm. I like that. They ate under the fading light, laughter mixing with the chirping of crickets. Every moment felt precious, know each word, each glance, each small gesture of kindness. After dinner, Rebette went inside to take a call, leaving Emily and Ethan outside. They sat in the quiet glow of the porch light. Ethan looked thoughtful. It's strange, he said. I used to think love was something that disappeared when people left. But it doesn't, does it? Emily shook her head gently. No, it just changes shape. Sometimes it becomes memory. Sometimes it becomes care for someone new. But it never disappears. He smiled faintly. You're good with words. She chuckled softly. Maybe it's all those years of reading love stories. He grinned. You're living one now. Emily blushed slightly, but didn't look away. Maybe I am. A quiet one. The best kind. Just then, Robert stepped back onto the porch, smiling. What are you two whispering about? Nothing, Ethan said quickly, laughing. Just life. Robert wrapped an arm around both of them. Well, life looks pretty good right now. Emily leaned into him, and Ethan looked up at the stars, clear, bright, endless. He thought of his mother somewhere beyond those lights, smiling. He didn't feel alone anymore. Later that night, when the house was quiet, Emily placed the letter in a frame on the mantel. Beneath it, she set one of the blueberry muffins they'd made the night before. It was her way of saying thank you to the woman who had come before her, to the family she now had, and to the love that kept expanding even after loss. Ethan came downstairs, half asleep, and saw her standing there. You couldn't sleep? He asked. She smiled softly. Just wanted to make sure her words had a good place. He nodded. They do. They stood there for a moment, side by side, looking at the framed letter glowing in the lamplight, and in that quiet space between the past and the future, they both understood what love really meant. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But it was real. It was choosing to stay when leaving would have been easier. It was forgiving without being asked. It was believing that even broken hearts could still make something beautiful. As dawn began to rise beyond the windows, the house no longer felt like it held ghosts. It felt alive, filled with laughter, memory, and new beginnings. And for the first time since she'd moved in, Emily whispered to herself, we're a family now. It's past. Ethan stirred in his room, dreaming of his mother's voice and the soft sound of rain that no longer frightened him. Love had finally come home.